Okay. Uh, so here's another game idea that I thought of. Yeah, focus on me. Uh, it's no secret that I disliked the Last of Us Part 2 story. Everything else was great. The graphics were great. The voice acting was great. The game mechanics, they were pretty good. How you progressed through the game was also good. But the story itself, it was no. And I'm just gonna, get this off my chest because apparently there's talks of a part three, and I hope that Naughty Dog finds this video along with Neil Drunkman. And before I continue, I'll say this: there's nothing wrong with a gay character. There's nothing wrong with a trans character. There's nothing wrong with a story or a video game having a character who's a member of the LGBT community or a character who's my skin color. There is nothing wrong with a minority character or any character within the LGBT community. It's when you shove a character's identity down our throats that becomes a problem. Now, with that out of the way, let me say this about the game idea I have. Before they even think of creating a story of Last of Us Part 3, here's an idea of how this story should go out or go about. It starts with Ellie still sitting alone inside that farm with nothing but guitar and a broken and missing fingers. She learns to play with those missing fingers. She starts then to travel. She goes to find a new source of happiness or to find Dana and her child to see if they can reunite. She knows where Dana is and her child, but she's afraid to meet up with her because of her choice to just let it go, to give up on the revenge. She's afraid that her choices will give her a rejection. Meanwhile, with Abby and her companion, they have relocated with the Fireflies. They're not doing as great as they're not doing any better than Ellie because when the story about what happened with her with the wolves and everything at the old base, some people were saying like it's hard for us to hate that smuggler. I, I think he kind of did the right thing. Where I mean they traveled together. They they experienced a lot of things together. Where it's all just Abby hearing about that he did nothing wrong. That the fireflies that she met up with, she felt like though as though they were judging her. That they said a cure ain't killing a child over a cure for humanity ain't worth it. And I know the whole trolley effect. Now, yes, you got one person here on one side of the tracks who's the cure, and if you let this one die, you save the many. And on the other track, you have the many. Well, If you kill the many, you save the one that's immune. But when you take those things out of the equation, you do choose who has. It's much more easier to choose on who has the higher value. Like for example, in that Mass Effect movie, where you play as James. What was his name? Vega. I cannot remember. He was the Mexican uh, crew member of Mass Effect 3 that you play with, not as, but play with, where you can have him as a member of your squad. Um, he was given a choice in that Mass Effect movie where he has to decide whether to save the ship of colonized people or to save the one woman that has information on the collectors. He chose to save the one woman with the information on the collectors due to the fact that he thought that it would be valuable information in order to defeat the collectors, only for him to see that it was all for nothing because we, as the player in Mass Effect 2, were already um, working on beating and defeating the collectors. So in that situation, he chose the value of the one over the the future of the many. I mean, that's the whole concept of the trolley effect. Yes, there's the one you can spare or kill versus the many you can save or kill. But when you expand it to the one that has the value over the many, it becomes a little bit more either easier or difficult. Where let's say this guy is the guy who knows the cure to every disease known to all mankind and unbeknownst to mankind, versus the many who are sick with said diseases and will only have about 50 to 50 to 70 years left to live. I mean, yeah, that's a long time to live. I'm talking about, the minor diseases that they have that they can go on living through. You got to ask yourself, do you save these people who still have enough time to live through the future? Or do you save the one who um, can cure it all? But I'm starting to get off topic here. So, yeah, Abby's not doing so well because she constantly feels like everyone that talks about how what Joel did was right at the Firefly base and that they went too far is they're basically criticizing that. And they find out that there's another doctor who can create a cure, but they need they need Ellie again, and they need that doctor as well. Now we go back to Ellie, and she too catches wind of a doctor who can create a cure, and she decides to go to it, and thinks to herself, if she lives or dies, it doesn't matter, because she feels like she's got nothing left to live for now that she's lost Joel and she's lost Dana and she's lost most of her friends, and she feels like Tommy won't talk to her because she gave up. She chose not to with the encouragement of Dana, and eventually along the way she meets up with a whole bunch of trouble with a whole bunch of newcomers that are willing to help her, find this doctor and aid her in her quest to create a cure. And she even runs into Tommy, and she tells her what he did, what she did. I'm sorry. She tells her what he did when he finally confronted Abby. Tommy feels somewhat disappointed that she chose to let her live, but joyful that at least you beat her. And he agrees to accompany her for this quest to find this doctor to cure. And as they could journey on, he starts to tell Ellie a lot more about Joel, what she didn't know, and what she did know about him. What was he like? How was he before all of this and during all of this? And as he's telling many stories of Joel before they met, she gets more and more depressed about it, while at the same time more joyful about the times that she spent with him. And, and as they're making their way over, they run into some cults of crazies where they're they're a bunch of nut jobs who are just hell bent on rapture and Armageddon. They want the cure. They don't want the cure. They want this virus to wipe off all humanity so that God can save them all and cause a great ethnic cleansing and rebirth. A grand reset, as you would call it, for humanity. And they capture Ellie. It's up to Tommy to try and free her, while Ellie is trying to break out and be free and rescue and save herself. But it ends right there, and we cut off to Abby, who is closer to finding the doctor, along with her companion from The Last of Us Part 2. I just can't remember who she was. Abby still has the nightmares, but now they've intensified to a much more worse, where her friends who have died haunt her, saying that you lied to us. You caused us our deaths. You killed us. You deceived us. This was never about the fireflies. This was only about what happened with your father. This was never about the cure. This was about your dad. How one of them says, my child was never going to be born because of you. Is never going to be born because of you. She won't know. She will know neither side of this world. The world of the cure and the world of of the infected, where all she can still hear is Joel's screams now, as she is just haunted by her friend's death, where she says, where Joel says in her dreams, I hope my death was worth it, as she wakes up. The and she notices that something is off, and she's she has a campfire going. She's at a camp in the forest, sleeping, and she realizes that there's someone trying to capture them or do something to them. Turns out it's just a small family, husband, wife, and child that has wandered across their path. She's very secretive of who she is and very suspicious of the family, but they're very friendly with her, and her companion. They agree to join up to the next city over. They say they're going to. They say they're heading to Chicago. And Abby asks why there, and and the husband says, "Well, I hear there's a new sanctuary over there." Ooh, excuse me. And so, while their destination lies further than Chicago, they agree to, hop, to join, walk side by side on this path they are on. And eventually, they run into trouble as well. They find themselves against a horde of infected. Uh, they got they they successfully keep everyone alive. No one is bitten, no one is infected. But then Abby asks them, "Would do you wish that there was a cure?" And they said, "Yeah, they do wish a cure could have been made." And then Abby asks, "Tell me something. Would you sacrifice your own child or your wife or your, for a cure if it would save humanity?" And the husband says, with a long pause, "Humanity is not worth sacrificing, my child. I don't care what others think. It just ain't worth it. Call me selfish, call me cruel, but my family is more important than humanity." She then looks to the wife, who says something down the same thing, and she states that, "I would never sacrifice my child. I would much rather sacrifice myself than, than my child or anyone's child." Abby tries her and Abby tries her best to hide her anger, frustration, and disappointment, because that was what her father wanted to do, and she knows it. That is what she would have wanted to be done. It didn't matter who you who you were sacrificing, as long as the sacrifice was made to create the cure. She was still looking for ways to justify her actions, because she's now got more hauntings. She's haunted by her decisions. She's haunted by the fact that her father is dead. She's haunted by the fact that she lied to her friends. And as they make their way to Chicago, they depart from one another and continue on. With her companion, who was a member of the Seraphim, I was trying to remember the Seraphim, or the Scars, as the wolf pack called them, or the wolves called them, had asked them, had asked Abby, "Do you ever stop trying to just justify your past instead of just trying to move on?" And it ends right there, going back to Ellie as she makes her escape from these weird, from these insane cultists. As Tommy reunites with her, and in, and they fall into a bloody gun battle where it leaves them standing and the cult dead. where they rummage through supplies, they find a vehicle, and where they're heading to is New York, which is where this doctor is allegedly at. And after that fiasco, they travel on the road. Ellie falls asleep with her own nightmares of what happened at the Firefly base. Oh, she assumes what happens at the Firefly base, where she is haunted by visions of all those who died just so she could get there. And then she leaves that base, enters that log cabin where she's haunted by the screams of Joel, where it's herself she sees. And it's herself that's asking Abby, not Abby, Ellie, why couldn't you save him? Why didn't you kill her? But it's never from Joel. All she sees Joel do and say is, it's okay to let go. Just let it go and live a happy life. And then she wakes up where Tommy pulls over. They are and they are in Michigan, where they have to make a pit stop and restock on supplies, ammunition, gas, and oil. They do some side tasks in order to get what they need by going uh, going in to rescue one of their village chiefs or town chiefs friend who wandered off too far and is probably trapped against the horde of infected. So they agreed to do so. They find out, however, this friend of theirs is a member of the Fireflies. And what they decide to do is save them. And they asked this individual, well, Ellie asked this individual, what happened at the base where the person that was immune and that smuggler, and the guy says, what happened there was a mistake. And Ellie asks, what do you mean by a mistake? And he says, was, I guess we got so caught up in trying to justify our actions, we lost sight of what was what was our real true goal. It was to help these people, not be the next government dictators towards them. And that's what he felt like because he found out what happened over there, and he said it just wasn't right to kill her, to sacrifice a child without her, without even asking her what she wanted, without even asking that smuggler what he wanted. I mean, and this is me speaking for him or what he would say. I mean, you gotta you gotta admit they had a bond on their way over there. You just don't you just don't do that to someone traveling together for a year, for over a year bonding like that, having a father-daughter relationship, maybe just ain't right. And that's what he sees. That this one Firefly member lost sight of who and what his organization, his movement was. And so they rescue him, they bring him back to town, they get their supplies that they had requested, and they're on the road again. It then ends with Ellie asking Tommy, was it wrong for me to not forgive Joel for what he did? And was it right for what Joel did? That's where it ends. And we go back to Abby, where they finally made it to New York. They made it there first. And they are dealing with another horde of infected, where they are once again rescued and saved by a mysterious man. They don't know who this guy is or what he's all about. He's just a big, huge mystery. He takes them to this. He takes them to his safe house, and as they are on their way to the safe house, they begin to talk and try to get to know each other a little better. Where he talks about how he's he's just a man who lost everything trying to survive, lived through it all, and to kill the man who took everything from him. Where Abby, on the other hand, talks about how she killed the man that took everything from her, but it didn't quite end so well. Where she talks about her mistakes, and this guy is slowly, this guy is listening, but he's starting to piece things together. He asks, uh, once he gets to the safe house, he asks, are you a member of the Fireflies? She says, yes, I was a former member of the Fireflies. That's when he understands and realizes why she's here. And he tells her, if I know what you're here for. You want the doctor for the cure. And he says, well, you can forget it. He rejects Abby outright and tells her to leave. That he will never work again with you monsters. And Abby's confused by this because she's never seen this guy or never met him before. She then says, my father, who was insert his name, which triggers this man into a damn near rage. And she says, died trying to create a cure. He was killed by a smuggler who took the one person that was immune. And this guy, this doctor lashes out at Abby and says, your father is the one who killed my wife, who was immune to the virus. He said that we would be saving lives if I just helped him out with the operation. But that scumbag went too far. he's just and the guy's just lashing out in anger and rage at Abby for defending that man and saying that her father got what he deserved for killing his wife and for killing all those other immune. It to the point where he nearly snaps, but he calms himself down and tells her to leave. Abby refuses, and she tries to defend her father by saying, "You may might not agree with how my father did things or worked, but still, at least my father was trying." And he responds with, "Your father wasn't trying anything but to make himself and that little organization redeem themselves, all for the sake of getting people on their side. They, they probably would have sold the cure in exchange for joining the Fireflies, holding it hostage. That cure wasn't going to be that cure was going to be given away just for free. You and I both know it." Where and Abby points a gun at him, is getting ready to shoot this guy, and he encourages her, grabs the gun in her hand, and points at his head, and says, "Do it," encouraging her, I mean, cheering her on for it, challenging her to do it, while saying that, and you'll never get the cure. You'll never find out how to cure this disease. And her companion stops her, calms her down, tries to convince her this isn't the way. And so she lowers the gun. She yells out profanity and starts kicking and breaking things and says, "I wish people would stop trying to say what I did was wrong. Is it so wrong to avenge the death of your father?" And the doctor says, "Not when your father has killed too many innocent people." And that smuggler, Joel, I think his name was, yeah, I heard about him, I know who he was. "You killed him, didn't you?" She replies, "Yes." "You know, do you?" And he asks him, "Do you even know why he did what he did?" And she said, "Yes." And all he could do was look at her with such disappointment and say, "You, child, are beyond saving. You, child, are a hypocrite. And you probably scarred that person." And we cut back to Ellie and Tommy, where they finally make it to New York themselves. And along the way, they run into Abby and her companion. And it gets into this heated fight where Abby's saying, "Look, I don't want to fight you." And she's just tired. But she says this to, she says this to Abby. "You killed my father figure for your own selfish gain, probably. All because I'm the cure. I'm the one Joel saved that day. I'm the one you scarred that day. That day you came and killed Joel. You took something from me right before my very eyes. I don't know if Joel did the same, but if he didn't, then at least you had the pleasure of not seeing the person most precious to you die right in front of your eyes. Hell, I think Joel probably would have spared his life, whoever that precious person was, if he were there. And they just depart, not feeling like they need to continue this fight. Abby tells her, wait, if you're looking for the doctor, we know where he's at. Tommy doesn't trust her. She's, he says she could probably lead us to a trap. Abby's companion says, no, it's true. We met the doctor. We left not on good terms. And so they agreed to be escorted to where the doctor was. When they come to his little hiding spot, they find something interesting. They find years, or years of research into the cordyceps. They find out he's been studying it for years, trying to develop a cure. He's been perfecting his understanding and breaking down the cordyceps. And that's when the doctor comes back and returns. And he sees Abby and he says, didn't I tell you to get out? And he says, we brought the one who was immune. He drops something in shock and sees that it is indeed the one who is immune. He says, I can prep you for operation. And don't worry, unlike that quack doctor, you won't have to die. You get to live. And Abby says, what makes you think my father, how did you know my father had no choice but to kill her? And he says, I found his notes. So the game switches over to Abby, where Ellie is escorted to a medical room to have the cure extracted. But then there are alarms going off, where it's the horde of the infected coming their way. And he says to Tommy and Abby and the companion, I need you two to hold off that horde. Use the traps that I've set out and the machine guns controlled by the computers to hold them off. As for you, young one, I need you to assist me in this operation. And so it's a race against time of trying to hold off that horde as he extracts the cure from Ellie. And as they're holding off the horde, working together, it's it becomes a 5 to 10 minute gunfight and battle royale where they have to constantly activate turrets, um, use Gatling guns um, that are mounted on walls or surfaces, detonate certain explosions of C4 and cars, cause distractions. And as they're doing this, they complement each other's skill. But it's more of a sarcastic and hateful spite, excuse me, for one another. And as they finish up, they get that notification or a phone call from the doctor saying, I succeeded, I did it. Tommy asks, how's Ellie? She's doing great. She's going to live and make it through. And you go back to that safe room where it's the, you see the doctor with the cure in hand and Ellie all bandaged up, waking up slowly, all tired and worn out from the surgery, saying it was a success. And we get to a we get to a tearful moment where we did, where a cure is finally made, and it ends right there. We get picture timestamps of what's been happening for the past 3 months, where the cure has been shared everywhere and has been made to make people immune, where Ellie returns and finds Dana and her child. And Dana asks her, why didn't you look for us? Or what kept you? And Ellie says, I went to go find myself, and then I went to go save the world to make sure everyone's death truly was for nothing. As Ellie has a new hairstyle because her hair is regrowing from surgery. And it cuts to another time skip of, well, not really much of a time skip, but a projection or a slideshow of pictures of 6 months, where a newer cure has been made, where a reversing agent, where it reverses the effects of the of those who are infected. The first cure was to make people immune. The second new cure is now able to reverse people who are over um, over 2 months infected with this virus, where they have to go through a procedure and everything. And then after that, they have to go through a whole mental recovery. And after that, it's we see Ellie playing the guitar and singing that song that Joel taught her to Dana's child, living together with Dana as one big happy family, and saying thank you to Joel, and I'll see you soon. It then cuts over to Abby, where she's found a guy, and there are children crawling around, infants, and she's seeing all, seeing how she feels like She doesn't deserve it, this happiness she has. But at the same time, she's thankful for it. Where she's in the bathroom crying, tears of joy, as she walks out, kisses her children, and says, I'm off for work, dear. And it ends right there. And that is how you do a damn good story on The Last of Us, Part 3. So take those notes. And, feel free to improve. Just don't put no politics into my story. Because here's the thing that you should take from Angry Joe, one of the world's greatest game reviewers and movie reviewers. You don't need to put politics in it in order to make a good story. You don't need to force people's identities in order to show representation. Because not even my black um, self like certain characters that are black. I mean, hell, I thought Wakanda Forever was meh. Just meh. Not great, not terrible, not good, just meh. Not even okay. That's slightly near okay for me. And that's all I have to say. But hey, that's just an idea, a game idea. Thanks for watching.